I'm going to talk about the frustrations that are associated with your partner. Because number 7, you want a good relationship, you need to be upfront and forthright with your partner. If you do have frustrations with your partner, and I guarantee you, you are going to have frustrations with your partner. As charming and wonderful as I am, I'll guarantee you Robin has had frustrations with me over the years. I've often said we've been married 43 years, and I'm sure some of those felt like dog years to her because we are different, and I'm sure I've frustrated her no end at times. You need to have emotional integrity. When Robin and I were first dating, she got upset with me about something, and she hadn't said anything other than 1 or 2 word responses for about 3-4 hours. So, being the clever and perceptive person I am, I thought, yeah, something's not right here. So I went in the other room and said, what's wrong? And she said, nothing. I said, okay. The translation was, plenty, bucko, and it's you. I said, okay, just hang on a minute. Let's have a conversation here. I'll make you a deal. I would much rather you just tell me straight up, here's what you did. I don't like it. And just tell me, and we can deal with it. I mean, I know you're eventually going to tell me. So why waste 2.5 days and then you tell me? Why don't you just tell me now? We can deal with it, and then we can enjoy the next 2.5 days. To which she said, well, that's fine, Mr. Cerebral, but maybe I don't feel like talking about it right now. I said, well, okay, then tell me that. But don't say nothing. When it's something, just say, I don't feel like talking about it right now. We'll talk about it later. But let's at least put it on the table. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't want to be standing there guessing. Just tell me, let's be honest. You don't have to talk about things on my schedule or my terms or ever for that matter. I don't get to set your clock. You talk about when you want, if you want, but let's at least be honest with each other. So if you don't want to talk about it, then just say, yeah, there is something bothering me. I just don't want to talk about it right now. Which I thought was a pretty good speech. And she said, okay, sounds good. Yeah, there is something wrong. I don't want to talk about it right now, so leave me alone. I said, okay. And about 15, 20 minutes later, she came in and told me what it was. We talked about it, resolved it, and we laughed about it later that day and just decided that we would deal with things as they came up instead of letting them build up. That was really important for our relationship. We just agreed we're going to be upfront and forthright and have emotional integrity. So if I said, is there something wrong with you? She wasn't going to say no if there really was. And same thing, if she asked me, are you upset about something? I'd say, yes, I am. I wasn't going to say no, deny it or whatever, when in fact that's not the case. And both of us reserve the right to talk about it when we felt like talking about it, which I think, to our credit, was generally either right then or pretty soon thereafter. But anger is nothing more than an outward manifestation of hurt, fear, and frustration. So if your partner is angry, if they're showing you anger, look behind the anger. That's a protective mechanism. What they're really experiencing is hurt, fear, frustration, or all three. And if you give them an opportunity, they'll tell you about that. But I'm talking here about emotional integrity. Don't lie to your partner. Don't be in denial. If you want a good relationship, be upfront and forthright about your emotions. That doesn't mean you have to talk about something before you're ready. But at least say, yes, there is something bothering me and I just don't feel like talking about it right now. Well, I want to talk about it right now. Well, then go talk to yourself. Your partner doesn't get to tell you when to talk about something, but at least be honest if there's something bothering you, and hopefully you'll deal with it in good time. Just don't play the nothing game or no, I don't know what you're talking about, when you damn well know there's something bothering you and what it is. Be honest about it. Save yourself years cumulatively. Number 8, look, you got to decide to make yourself happy rather than right. This world is full of right fighters. People that just decide, look, I'm right about this. I'm just right, by God. I'm right. I got the right to say this. I'm right about it. There's nothing going to change my mind. I saw such a tragic example of this Many years ago when I was in private practice, I was working with a family, and there was a father that had a teenage son. The son wanted to grow his hair long, and the father just wasn't having it. And, the kid had grown his hair out, and he kind of kept it hidden a lot until all of a sudden his dad realized that he was, in his dad's words, had become a long-haired hippie. I remember we were having a family session, and he said, "Boy, you're going to get you a damn haircut." And the kid said, "I don't want to get a haircut." My attitude about those things when I worked with families, and my attitude about it now is, when you're talking about hair or style, you got to pick your battles. These things come and go. I mean, if a kid wants to dye his hair bright green, just take a breath, because next week they'll shave it off or it'll be a different color or something. I mean, what difference does it make? They want to grow it long, wait a couple weeks. They'll shave it off into a mohawk. You go, "Oh my God, that's even worse." Well, hang on, that'll go away too. Next thing they'll know, they'll get a bear haircut and it'll be something else. They'll have polka dots on their head. But that all goes away. Pick your battles. Kids go through fashion and they go through hairstyles and stuff, and it's nothing permanent. It's not going to make any difference. Pick your battles. I'm telling his dad privately, "Look, lighten up about this, man. I have the right. He's my son. He's a minor. I have the right to tell him how I want him to wear his hair." Yes, you do. You have the right, but you want to be right or you want to be happy? Why don't you roll with it? Come on, tease him about it or something. But have fun with it. Tease him about it. Do something, but just don't throw the hoe handle down here and have a showdown and get resentment. You're going to push him into rebellious behavior and all of that. I'd love to tell you that I had great therapeutic breakthrough, but I didn't. He was just a hammerhead, and he wasn't going to listen. He was just right. I got the right to do it, and he's not going to make the decisions here. I'm the father. He's the son. I'm going to tell him what to do. Well, we'll talk about it next week. That was on a Wednesday. His son played on the junior varsity basketball team. His name was JB. He was a good basketball player. He was point guard. They were at the game, the junior varsity basketball team. His son was bringing the ball down in the second half of the basketball game, and he crossed mid-court. He just stumbled and fell, just did a face plant on the court. And nobody could figure out what happened. Did he slip on somebody's sweat and it was slick or whatever, and he fell down. And they blew the whistle, and he didn't get up right away, so they went out there and checked him. Trainers came out, and coach came out, and they turned him over. They determined later that he was dead when he hit the ground. His heart just exploded when he was running down the court. It was a congenital defect that had not been diagnosed. And when he was running down the court, the demand on the heart, it just exploded. He died in the 1 second between stumbling and hitting the floor. And his dad has had to live with their last interactions being, "By God, you're going to get a haircut because I say you are, and I've got the right to do that." He told me many times after that he wished he had listened and picked his battles differently, that he wished he could ruffle up his son's long hair and tease him about it or joke about it. How he remembers him running down the court with that hair flowing and how athletic he looked and everything, and how he wished he had a chance to do it over. He was right, but he sure wasn't happy. And my point is, you got to pick your battles. Do you want to be right in this relationship, or do you want to be happy? The things that you think you're so right about, and maybe you are right, do they really matter in the grand scheme of things? Do they really, really matter? I said I was raised by an alcoholic father. The last year and a half, almost 2 years of his life, he quit drinking and enrolled in the Dallas Seminary and got his Master's of Divinity. He died sober. He actually died teaching a Sunday school class. When he started the Sunday school class at this particular church, there were 10 people in his class. The morning he died, there were about 350. class had grown that much because he was such a great communicator. We had some interesting talks in that last year and a half or 2 years because they're making up for lost time, I guess, all the years that he was drunk. He used to talk about hearing God's voice, that, God will speak to you and you'll hear his voice and he'll tell you what to do with your life. I used to tell him, well, that's good in theory, but I don't think I hear God's voice. And he would say, well, as seldom as you talk to him, I don't wonder that you don't recognize his voice. So, well, that's real funny. But, he said you get a lot of signals in life that will give you wake-up calls. And he said you want to be real careful to listen very closely and watch very closely if you get kind of that little tap on the shoulder, a little wake-up call from God. Because if you don't pay attention to the little tap on the shoulder, you just might get a real rap on the head. I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, you know from being a therapist that people only think they've got problems until they really do. He was exactly right. Because what he was talking about is you have people in there and they're fighting just to the death. I mean, they're yelling and screaming and just willing to go to the wall over who's right about finances or who's right about parenting or who's right about whether this child should go to a private school or a public school. And they're just in there fighting tooth and nail. And they come in the next week and they found a spot on that child's kidney and it's malignant. And all of a sudden, they don't give a tinker's damn about whether he goes to a public school or a private school or how long their hair is or who's parenting right or who's parenting wrong. That's what he means, is you only think you got problems until you do. So don't spend too much time worrying about being right and waste time that you could spend being happy. There's just two things left I want to say about really giving your relationship a chance to be happy. Number 9, allow your relationship to transcend the turmoil. This is real simple, and I'll use Robin and I as an example. We've been married 43 years, and we have never spoken the D word in our home. Despite what you may have heard in the tabloids and all the clickbait stories that you see, we have never spoken the divorce word in our home, not in passing, not in an argument, not in any way have we spoken that word. And I'll tell you why. We decided a long time ago that no matter what disagreements we have, no matter what kind of arguments we have, the relationship is just simply not the stakes for which we are playing. There's no emotional extortion. It's never like, you want to argue with me and just get all upset, then fine. I'll just get my stuff and leave. No, that's not the deal. We both know no matter what gets said, no matter what the argument may be or the disagreement may be, the relationship is just not on the line. That's just not table stakes. That's not what we're playing for. Think about a river, and there's a branch of a tree that reaches out over the river. You can get in the river and splash around, but you cannot splash high enough to get that branch wet. It's just too high above the river. Well, that's our marriage. Now, we can get down there in the river and we can splash around, argue, and splash water on each other, and we can thrash around, but it doesn't matter how much you thrash around. It is not going to splash up on that branch because that's where our marriage is, and that's not going to get wet. That sits up above the turmoil. The relationship is never the stakes for which we play, so it doesn't ever come into play. So no matter how mad one of us may get or what one of us may say, nobody ever enters that conversation thinking, well, how bad is this going to get? Is this going to end the relationship? Is this going to be the conversation that ends it? And the answer to that is no. Never happened, because we've understood and have the integrity that that's not going to be part of it. That's just not the stakes for which we play. And I highly recommend that. We deal with things as they come up, so we've never had a disagreement that even remotely approached that. We deal with things while they're small before they get big. We might have a lot of little skirmishes or disagreements and no wars. And that's what happens if you deal with things when they come up. They don't have a chance to fester and build into big things. People ask us, do we argue or have disagreements? Of course we do. But there are a lot of little small things, day-to-day things, because we just don't let them build up for a month or 2 months and then there's a blow up. But even if they did, the relationship is not something that would be on the line. That's not something for which you ever should play. Number 10 really refers to the first 9, and that is put motion into your emotions. Put motion into your emotions. Everything that I've just been talking about. Own your relationship. Accept the risk of vulnerability. Accept your partner. Be a good friend. Promote their self-esteem. Don't vent your frustrations at home. Be upfront and forthright. Make yourself happy, not right. All of these things. These are action steps, things that you need to do differently. Put these things into motion. It doesn't do any good to just feel differently. You have to behave differently. And I promise you, when you do, you will no longer be eliciting, maintaining, or allowing destructive behavior from your partner. You will be creating an environment that is really fertile for health. If you do things that makes your partner feel better about who they are, I promise you things are going to feel better at home.